welcome to the Feeder Series podcast. I'm your host, Jim Kimberley, and today we're welcoming back a driver to the show who joined us back in 2023 ahead of a rookie campaign in Formula 3. Last time, he told us of his addiction to a certain brand of donuts and inspired me to completely change my teeth cleaning habits by brushing them in the shower. Listen to episode 49 for more of that. It is a great chat. But before you do, our driver today in focus, of course, is Sebastián Montoya. Welcome back to the show. How are you and where in the world are you today?
I'm in Bahrain right now, and honestly, I'm doing great. It's been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun with the new team, though the way the dynamic is, and especially because all three of us, of my teammates, we've known each other from karting. I think the dynamic is really different. And for example, Mari, I've gotten with him a really long time. We've always been good friends. And Ollie, he's such a good man just to be with. Like the company is really good. We have a lot of fun together. We work hard together. We push each other a lot, which makes it a lot of fun. And yeah, honestly, it's gonna be a fun year.
It's a different sort of season for you because we're speaking now before the season starts, and we're not going to focus too much about what may happen in the next few weeks or anything, but I know what has happened in the past few weeks, and that is no winter series racing in the way that you did F4 and Fremek, I think we call it now, from the Regional Middle East Championship. How has it been this off-season in terms of your changed approach going into the 2024 full summer season?
Yeah, I think it's a bit different, the approach, I think, especially because the first time I did the winter series thing was for regional, where my teammates were doing it. That was kind of the trend of everyone doing that and then going to Europe to race. And to be honest, that was really positive the first year. Last year, it was really just to understand the team. I think because it was a different team dynamic, I think it really helped me to get in the flow of how the team was working. But for this year, I think we're kind of changing that approach after Macau. We kind of looked back at the year and went, okay, this is something that we could have done better. This was really good and we're going to maintain this, but just different things that were kind of changing, and we wanted to try to maximize everything in a different kind of way. I think something that people don't really see behind the scenes is how much work the driver has sometimes. And for example, last year I was traveling to the UK maybe once or twice every week, besides having to go there additionally to prepare the races with high tech. With Red Bull, I had other commitments, and just traveling every week, you start to get tired, the fatigue starts to hit in, and then throughout the season, you go to tracks, for example, like Melbourne, that the time difference is 13 hours. So it's I'm supposed to be sleeping right now and I'm going to the track. So it's just looking at it a bit differently, and I think it's really helped me. I find myself a lot happier. I find myself enjoying it a lot more. And we've also started to do a different kind of approach with gym training, mental training, and we've been doing a lot of karting recently. And honestly, I love it. Just hopping back into the car, it's really nice going back to the roots and just pounding around once in a while.
Racing is racing, no matter what level it is. Just on the Melbourne
Exactly.
thing, though, it's a long time difference. But you're coming back with a trophy. That must have been a pretty nice long flight back when you're looking so quick.
Yeah, to be honest, it was a really nice, especially because it was my first time in Australia since I was a baby.
Hmm.
I went when I was with my dad in Formula One, and going back to, honestly, I loved Melbourne. It was such a fun experience. The fans, the people are really nice. Just the environment, it was really cool. And also after the race, we went to a sanctuary with animals, and that was an incredible experience as well. Just being with kangaroos and different animals, and then you start chasing them around, and then they start chasing you. And honestly, that for me was a really fun weekend because it was kind of a vacation, but also racing weekend all in one. And to be honest, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and the racing was really cool. The track was the first time after it was there, so the conditions were quite difficult. And honestly, as you said, with a trophy in the end, I'm happy.
I loved that weekend just watching it. The rain, the quality, it was just absolute chaos. I mean, F3 generally is absolute chaos, but that was almost the epitome of it, and it was sensational to watch. But it raises a good point, actually, because I hadn't really considered that you, as an F3 driver last year, you're not doing the Frecker kind of European-based racing. You are going here, there, and everywhere. Like right now, you are in Bahrain. that, as you alluded to, must take its toll. But do you see it as a holiday as well when you go to some places that you're not too familiar with, these new tracks?
Not really. Like for example, like Bahrain, I kind of knew what to expect because I did the rookie test for WEC here in 2021. At the end of my second year of F4, I got invited to do a rookie test with Dragon Speed, which the following year in 2022, I would race the endurance championship with them in the US in IMSA. And it was really interesting to hop into the F3 at this track just because the way the car works and the way you approach the corner is a bit different. Like, for example, in F3 at the end of the straight here, you're doing like around 270, 280 kilometers an hour, where in that car we were doing 300 and we don't have a DRS. So just the way it was working, it was really interesting. And to be honest, like, Bahrain is really nice. Like, I really like it. It's really relaxed. It's really cool. There's really good restaurants. Like, you can really enjoy yourself. And the good thing is that since it's a night race, you don't have to be at the track so early in the mornings compared to other tracks. Like, for example, like I remember Silverstone, like Spa, that you wake up at like 4 in the morning. You're at the track at like 6:30 in the morning. Like, and for me, I think the biggest like time that my heart like dropped last year during the season was Monaco, where they told us to be at the track at 6:30 in the morning because the cars were rolling out at like 7:15.
The cars roll out from a different country, from what I understand, in
Yeah,
Monaco, where they're parked.
We're in the country club, the Monaco Country Club that's in France. And I was pulling up because I live in Monaco, so I was pulling up to the paddock. And when I pulled up to the paddock, there was like people already like getting into the cars, like people with suits on. Like, I woke up 30 minutes ago and I'm going into the track now. Like, wait, what's going on here? So it makes it really interesting. But like as I said, Bahrain is a really comfy country. And because you do preseason testing, you kind of know what to expect for the race weekend, and you're
Hmm.
really like excited to get going again. So it just makes it a lot of fun.
I bet. I'm looking forward to seeing how you do this season, not just at Bahrain, but everywhere. And by the time this podcast might go out, it could already be in Bahrain, so we'll have a better idea. But final thing on my side, your teammates, you kind of alluded to them before. You have got Campos, who are growing, I see, as a team. They aren't I wouldn't say they're never really back markers, but midfield back markers. They seem to be one of the teams that are challenging for wins. They could have been vice champion driver last year with Pepe Marti. You're stepping into the team with two solid drivers. These aren't rookie drivers coming in. These are drivers with experience. How well, it sounds like you're getting on with your fellow drivers. How are you finding the team, the new environment, the drivers, everything? Are you going in thinking this could be where you're going to get the team's championship? It could be battling for wins regularly.
Yeah, I think the team, I think the first thing they said to us is that it's the first time they're able to have three good drivers and potentially not only rookie drivers, but drivers with experience fighting for the championship. So it's a different dynamic. Whereas, for example, last year in high tech, it was all three of us rookies. So that put us in
Mm-hmm.
some situations sometimes where it kind of went, okay, what do we do here? Whereas now it kind of changes a bit more because now we have that experience, which I think it's really like underrated, that experience, because that experience really changes the mentality that you should have for the race weekends. Because like for example, like a track like Spa or Silverstone, like that's a track that not many drivers drive in their previous years getting to F3. Whereas like for example, if you go to a track like Barcelona, like everyone's driven. So I think that's like one of the tracks where you can see rookies really stepping up and getting that. Like, it was kind of funny because like they told us in high tech the first thing that you should expect in Bahrain is that everyone's going to be quick because you have 3 days of testing. But then if you go
Mm-hmm.
to a track, for example, like Silverstone or Australia, that's going to be a bit more spread out because the track not everyone has driven it, and the ones that have driven it have already an advantage. So that kind of changes the dynamic a bit. But yeah, honestly, my teammates, we're pushing each other a lot. We're very competitive. We all had really good performances last year at some point during the season. So obviously, we're quick. And I think we all have the same goal, which is win the championship. And not only for us, but also for the team. The team has really been pushing a lot. They've really gone, as you said, in an upward slope. So our goal is just to keep going with that and maximizing our results.
I remember speaking to Adrian last year, and he said that the Adrian Campos, and he did say that we've got Pepe is the driver that actually stuck with us, so we're not starting from scratch. And the difference between Pepe's first and second seasons is, well, I think the the trophies
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
Barcelona weekend says everything. So you're in a really good place. But I could chat all day, as I'm sure you and the audience know, and so that's enough idle chit chat. And as long-time viewers and listeners will know, the Feeder Series podcast isn't for me; it's for our audience. So we're going to turn to your questions. Just before we get there, we had plenty of amazing guests on the show in the past, such as Sebas, and we've got more lined up coming this year. So if you like what we do, please make sure to subscribe on YouTube or your podcast player. Drop us a like, leave your thoughts on the show, and why don't you comment with any other guests you'd like to see joining us in the future. And for those of you already following us, thank you so much. We've had, and I checked this out just earlier, over 250,000 listens and views. And for a feeder series podcast, that's not so bad. So really, really happy with that. Genuinely appreciate all of your support. It really means a lot. Let's get into the questions. And the audience have a lot. You had a lot last year. You had a lot of good answers. One of the answers did, I had on Heartbeat, I did it an hour ago, did make me start brushing my teeth in the shower as a way to speed up the process because my hand was already wet, as you said. We've got 10, what I'm going to call quick fire questions, which could be one word answers, but short answers certainly. I think some might be repeats of last year's, but maybe things have changed. So, first up from Discord is Sandals. They want to know, are you a cat or a dog person?
Dog. I'm scared of cats. Dog person.
Scared of cats?
Yeah.
Okay. No further questions for that, but that opens up things in my head about why you're scared of cats. We'll maybe come back to that next time. Idris wants to know waffles or pancakes.
Waffles.
No hesitation. Oh, a little bit of hesitation. Teo wants to know. Last year it was black. What color is your toothbrush?
Oh, I forgot. Black. I had a blue one. I had a white and blue one. Now it's black. I have to change it.
So you've gone back to black. You're black.
Yeah.
I remember it was black last year because I couldn't believe it. Who has a black toothbrush? That's crazy.
Yeah, I have a black toothbrush.
Okay, the guy likes his black toothbrushes. Lee Watt wants to know, what's your favorite movie?
Right? Baywatch and Black
Oh, really?
Panther. Top three.
Oh, three.
I can't tell you exactly one, but that's the top three.
So Baywatch as in The Rock. Baywatch, the one that
Yeah.
came out. Okay, I get that. I wouldn't never have guessed it, but it's a fun movie. I get that. Yeah, very entertaining. Crab wants to know, if you watch football, what team do you support?
Are we talking American or European football?
Why don't we do both, and then we cover our bases?
All right. Then I'm a big Man City fan in the Premier League, and then in everything else, Real Madrid. So, yeah. So, for example, like I have to say Haaland and Bellingham like gifts for like for like the support I can give. They're gifts. And then in American football, I'm a big like Miami Heat fan and Miami Dolphins fan because I'm from Miami and my best friend was a huge Miami Dolphins fan. So yeah, they're not the best, but I mean, Miami Dolphins.
Okay, I've not watched football for a long time or followed it, but as somebody who was is a Wolves fan, I know what it's like to have a home team that aren't exactly the ones fighting for the title. So I totally respect that. Checker wants to know, and I don't know if you did answer this one last year, but it's a common question. What is your favorite type of cheese?
I don't really like cheese, but I have to say mozzarella sticks. Like mozzarella just because of the mozzarella stick.
Just mozzarella. So you have the cheese with a stick by itself, not on a pizza or anything. It's mozzarella.
I have to say because I'm not that like for example, this is really weird, and like I don't like extra cheese on my pasta. Like yeah, like I don't know, but mozzarella, like because of the mozzarella sticks.
Okay, I won't push you. We've got some from Twitter side of things now. Melissa wants to know, a really good question. Who would you take with you to go and do some karaoke?
Oh, probably Pepe or Christian Mansell. Us three.
Is that because they're good singers or?
No, that's exactly why. That's exactly why.
This maybe ties into it with this question from Han. Who is your best friend in the F3 paddock? And they've got and why, but you can answer that bit if you like. But
Uh,
best friend in the F3 paddock.
Probably Christian Mansell because Pep is an F2 now. Um, because it's like us three, like we've known each other from karting, so it's just the environment, like just same friends, just different place.
I do like both of them. They were on the podcast last year, and the fun that they had. If we had you on it, I'm sure it would have gone on for about 6 hours and had a lot of stories that probably should never have gone public. Final few questions from Evs, who wants to know what's your favorite song.
Changes a lot, but this
Mm.
one has been on my mind quite a lot. And Sprinter by Central C and Dave
I'm not familiar with it because I'm an old man, but I'm sure some of the audience will nod
is
along. Do you want to sing it for me? Pretend you're in karaoke with Pepe
oh
Augusto?
like well that's not pushing that's not pushing that's something that I might do later on in the season. Let's see.
If you do it on the podium, then that'll be the way to go, man. And then Pat, double A, who is, next to your own father, of course, which is a good get out, your favourite F1 driver ever in the history of motorsport? F1
Uh,
driver.
Senna. Besides my dad, Senna. Ayrton Senna.
Yeah, it's a solid answer. I totally get that. Now we're going to go on to some questions which are less quick fire and a bit more detailed, but 10 quick fire questions and 10 quick fire answers there. This one comes from Colombia motor fans. There are actually two questions. So I'm going to ask you, do you want number one or number two?
Let's go number one first. Let's go number one first. In order, in order.
All right, you might need to explain it to some of the people less familiar with foreign cuisines, depending where they're from. But did you finally take the arepas with you to Europe?
Oh, this is good. So arepas is like so you know how like Mexico has the tortillas.
I
It's
know.
like
I lived in Mexico. I've had arepas as
really
well.
so you know what are like oh arepas are like the
Oh, not
best
not for me.
arepa.
This is the audience. Not everybody
Like
knows this delicious
oh but
food.
like it's like a it's a kind of like a tortilla thing, but it's like hard and it's so good. It can be either flour based or corn based, and it's so good. Like I have arepas every morning because it's like really Colombian, and there's like different sizes. There's like the little ones that are a bit chunkier, like a bit thicker and like smaller. But then there's the flat ones that are quite big. I get the flat ones that are quite big with like scrambled eggs, mushrooms, and ham. Put that on top, and that's called arepa with huevo. Oh, that's amazing! Gosh, I love it. Yes, I did bring them. Oh, and that
I
goes with me everywhere.
I have to remind the audience that I don't have a chef with me. I have a driver because that's the most passionate I've seen you in the
No,
last
but
20
damn,
minutes.
it's
Because
good. It's so good. I love it. Like that's like the one thing that like I always have. Like the one thing I don't get bored of is that every morning.
okay, I'm get it. I mean, I don't know if I'd have it for the morning for breakfast, but as a lunch, sort of lunch or dinner, it's a cracking sort of thing. So I love that. I love your passion about your food. I have a lot of questions, Anna, because we could talk about that one for a while. If we get through them all, I'd be amazed. But let's see. But we've got this one from Vicky. Again, multiple questions. There's four on this one. Do you want one, two, three, or four?
Let's go number three.
Number three. Okay. If you'd go to a treasure hunting trip, as you do, you often go for treasure hunting trips,
Yeah, yeah.
who would be your partner and why? I guess this isn't F3 paddock or anything like that, just anybody who could be your partner and why.
Probably my older sister Pala. Because for some reason, like we do a lot of escape rooms. Like we love escape rooms in our family.
Oh, cool.
And like we when we usually like start working with our heads together, like wow, we do really well. Sometimes obviously like we're siblings, so like we like bang heads once in a while. But when we don't, we make a really good team. So I have to say my sister Paula.
That's an amazing answer. I mean, I don't think I've ever spoken about escape rooms on the podcast, but they are such a different way of doing things, right? It's like a game, but
It's
real
incredible.
life.
Like it's yeah.
Uh, we've got this one, and I'm always conscious to Sebastian Montoya is a driver, but of course we can't hide the fact that that surname brings a lot of attention. So this one's from Marcin. Your father is a famous F1 driver, the winner of the first race I attended in real life, may I add as well,
Really.
Silverstone 2005. Yeah, I remember it. I remember it. Famous motorsport name. How much does this help, and how much does this damage your career? Do you feel better? Do you feel the better or worse side of this? How does it affect you? I guess if I want to alter that question slightly, because I'm sure you've answered questions about your dad a lot. The best and worst thing about that.
Like something you have to remember is that like I've always had the last name, so I don't understand. Like for me, like that's just the way I've grown up. So obviously, like,
Mm.
there's good sides and bad sides of it. Like a good side is that I have a fucking good coach. Like sorry the language, but like he is one of the best. So I mean, that's a really good thing. Um, the bad thing is number one, he's always right because he knows a lot. So I have to
Mm.
say like. I like if we get into an argument, like I'm usually the one losing, so it's hard to admit that sometimes. Even though I think I'm right, I'm like most likely wrong. Um, and I think the other side is that because your last name is Montoya, I think it kind of it will probably happen with Schumacher as well. Both Nick and David, it's like because you're carrying the last name, people want to prove themselves that just because you have the last name doesn't mean you're better than them. But
Mhm.
what people sometimes don't understand is that you didn't really choose the last name. Like it just kind of got to
Mm.
you. So it makes it really interesting. But honestly, like I really like it. Like I love my life. I love my dad. He supported me since the moment I said I wanted to start racing, and he's been with me the whole way. Not only him, but my whole family. And it's been a cool journey, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity it's given me.
All the interactions I've had with the Montoyas have been tremendous. You are such a lovely family. And I want to point out something which I don't think you will see the same benefit, but maybe you do. That I remember walking past the scrutineering or the steward's room in Barcelona, and I looked in the window. I couldn't hear what was going on, but you were there for something, and I thought, now that's the advantage no one really thinks about, because when Pablo was there, fighting your corner, and I remember you didn't get any punishment, and I was like, this guy knows what the secrets are and how to get his way with the FIA. So I thought that's probably an advantage which you don't think about sometimes.
Yeah, and I remember it because it was that the stewards didn't know what to do with me. And we were actually not even talking about that. We were talking about something completely different, about a pass that was made and then me trying to attempt that pass. And we were talking about it with the steward, and it kind of like, because they saw it one way and then I saw it another way. And my dad went, well, both of you are right, but you have to like understand each other's part. And like, it was a really cool dynamic because I went, oh, that makes sense. Then yeah, I was pretty much in the wrong. I was like kind of in the wrong, but it kind of like messed up my own race because I was in the wrong, but I ended up getting a puncture, so it just kind of balanced out.
I kind of like that Juan Pablo's like the diplomat in all of this as well. So that's a nice little backup. And then this one's from Elvis the Sheep. You know, Elvis the Sheep. Great name. Best race of your career so far?
There's a lot. There's a lot. Um, I can't tell you
Even
exactly.
karting, maybe? Because you can go way back into the years here.
That's what I'm thinking. Like I've had like some really good karting races. Also in F3, I had a really good races, regional. I have to say in F3, probably one of the best races of my career is obviously the result wasn't ideal, but just the whole thing to get there was Spielberg last year, the feature race, because in practice I got no laps on the soft tires. I did 2 laps in quali with the new soft tire, and then Saturday was wet, so I kind of went to the race with just driven 2 laps on the
Mm.
soft tire, on the brand new soft tire, and just being able to go from P15 fighting for the podium was really cool because that was one of the few times where like just the way everything flowed, it was really nice. Just obviously the last lap wasn't ideal. Like Franco and I were both fighting for the podium, and the fact that none of us got on the podium was not what we wanted.
Mm.
But just the way it worked with communicating with my engineer, knowing where I wanted to be, knowing what I wanted to do, and then executing that. That's exactly that's kind of like the thing what you want as a driver. Like kind of like know what you want and just kind of like little by little, just bit by bit. No matter if, like, for example, if I pass a guy and he dives, like, almost crashes into me in the next corner, just let that go, pass him back the next lap, and just keep on going. That was a really fun experience. And just it was it kind of opened my eyes of like, wow, like I'm not that bad. Like I can really do a good job.
Do you? I don't know how best to word it. Do you think it's like you're midway through the season, you're kind of going to tracks with like some familiarity, but also like a proper track. With all due respect to other tracks, but Red Bull Ring is my favorite ring. It's just such a perfect track in my opinion. Is that more maturity and more comfort with the car by that point as well? Do you think that could help you with that sort of advancement, or do you think it's just a combination of everything?
I think it's a combination of everything. Like because you drive the car in so many different conditions, and like what people forget is that in F3 you have three different types of tires, and it's not like an F1 that you use them all on the same circuit, but you go from circuit to circuit, kind of changing. Like for example, like last year we had the hard tires in Australia, and then this year we have the medium. But I don't know how many people saw the Hungary race in F3, but they had to shorten. I think they shortened the race, the feature race, if I'm not wrong in Hungary because the tire deck was too much. Like it was too much, and the tire was actually falling apart. And like those are things that kind of like as a driver you really have to manage because the hard tire last year, well, this year for the people just to understand a bit more, the medium and the hard tires are changing, whereas the soft tires are the same. So we use the same soft tire in Red Bull Ring and in Monza, but then the other tracks they're all brand new tires, 2024 spec, and like the old hard tire, you could really like push it. You could you could put temperature into it and slide around with it at a certain level and get away with it. Whereas the medium tire, like that medium tire, like I remember the first test, we looked at it and it started graining. Like that's how bad it was. Like that's how quick it would fall apart. It's not bad, but and then like we worked on it, and as soon as we worked on it, the driving style was completely different. So obviously, like you go from tire to tire, changing your driving style, and then adapting to the track, and then adapting to the car, and then by the time you realize you're already done with quality. So it's like,
Mm.
whoa, that happened really quickly. So like I have to say like that's a really big challenge, and just being able to like achieve all that in one race and like getting it done in such a nice manner throughout the race. And I think the best part about that is that on lap 3 or lap 4, when Dino was in the lead, I remember I came out of the last corner, I saw him entering the first corner, I was like, I'm gonna chase him down. And then
Mm.
doing, I think probably like for me, it was the best pass I've ever done. Like going through turn 6 on the outside, him pushing me wide onto the gravel, and then doing the pass from the gravel around the outside of turn 7. Like that for me is one of the best passes I've made in my entire life.
I can see it in your face now. You're even picturing it. But I have to echo. I mean, I'm obviously not a racer. I've got a sim and I do some stuff in iRacing, and it really struck me when I thought more on it, especially when you compare it from even below the F1 support series, FRECA and F4 and whatnot. F3, you don't really have much track time to learn anything in reality because I'll do an hour-long practice session on whatever the track of the week is in, say, the F4 or the F3 car, but there's no chance I'm going to be at the pace that you get the top split to
No,
get a win or
no.
anything like that. There's so much learning, and you guys get barely any time to do it. So yeah, I love that. I love that answer, and I could talk more about it. But let's move on because we've got a lot of questions, and if we can get through some more, that'd be great. This one's from Ellie, and I like it. Fairly basic, but how are you? How is life?
Honestly, been enjoying it a lot recently. Really excited. We're filming this before the testing, so I have to say I am really excited. And I'm pretty sure I'm still gonna be really excited whenever this comes out. Because honestly, like I'm really looking forward for the season, the year. Just everything's been really fun. Like I've been enjoying it a lot recently, and like just changing the approach we've had for this year that we said a little bit at the beginning is just kind of fitting everything where we think we can improve and just working on that, not only in my driving, but also my physical side, my mental side, just fine tuning the little details, like being able to rest a lot more just so when I have to perform, I'm performing at a better level. That's been really fun. So I have to say I've
I
really
can
enjoyed it.
I can pick up just the difference from the last time we spoke to today, the last time on the podcast, should I say? That I don't know, you seem more comfortable in everything. You seem a little more. I don't. You were never not calm. That's totally the wrong way. We just seem to be understanding life,
Yeah.
understanding racing and whatnot. So
And I
that's
think
really
that that's something that came
positive.
a lot from last year is just not only the maturity, but also just the understanding of everything a bit better. Just
Mm.
knowing that some things are out of your control and other things you can't control. And what you can control, do the best you can with it. And what you can control, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. What can you do? It's out of your hands. But the things you can control, put yourself in the best position with it.
That is a very good mindset to go into the season. I said to Gabriel Bortoleto around this time last year, I can sense just that level of maturity from year on year. So that's not a bad sign at all, Seb. Srihari, I think is how I pronounce it. Sebastian, was driving LMP2s a choice for you, or was it just something that happened out of nowhere in between your single-seater career?
Obviously, I had a choice with it. Like, I think it kind of came as an opportunity that kind of like dressed itself very nicely, in my opinion. Um, Honestly, like I really, for me, the number one thing was always wanting to race with my dad. And then when the opportunity
Hmm.
came of actually being able to be his teammate, I think that was kind of like a no-brainer. Like the moment, like I didn't actually know I could get the opportunity to actually race with my dad. They said that I could have the opportunity to drive in 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 well the rookie test here in Bahrain actually, and obviously I'm not gonna say no.
Hmm.
Like as a kid, like you always want to drive a fast car, and like to be honest, I was gonna be the big first car I was gonna be driving. Like I was racing F4 at the time, which the max speed was like 240 kph in Monza, which I was racing the week before, and then I remember Tuesday, Wednesday I was testing in Spa with the regional, which the following year would race. And then from there, I would fly straight to Frankfurt and then take a flight to Bahrain. And then that next day, I would be driving the LMP2. So it's just kind of like I'm driving three different cars, three different tracks. I'm not complaining. Let's go. All three
No.
of them are F1 tracks, three different cars. Like this is like a life dream. Like I can't complain. And honestly, it was really cool. And then when it all happened, they just kind of looked at me and they went, "You're doing a really good job. You're very fast. Do you want to race
Hmm.
Sebring?" And I was like, the 12 hours. And they're like, yeah, the 12 hours of Sebring. It would be yourself, your dad, and myself. Henrik told me the bronze. And I went, yeah, well, I mean, yes, how, as a driver, like, I feel like you can't say no to those things. Like, there's certain things as a driver where I think you just can't say no. Like, for example, like, I got the opportunity to race Mini Coopers with my dad, against my dad,
Hmm.
after Macau. And, like, we kind of looked at each other when they gave us the call if we wanted to race. We looked at each other and we went, yeah, why not? Like, there's just certain things that just make it a lot of fun. And I think that was one of those things. It was obviously my choice. And I really gained a lot of experience from it. Not only did it help my driving, I think, but it also kind of helped me mature and also learn a lot from my dad. Because now being his teammate kind of changes the way you work with someone and you see someone. And honestly, I really enjoyed it. The 2 years that we did together was really fun.
There's a lot of track time for you, even though it's not necessarily on the F3 side of things, which just
Exactly.
helps you just learn your racecraft, right?
Exactly.
It's that's cracking. I can just tell you enjoy racing and get
Oh,
just
I love it.
having
I
the
love it.
opportunity to do it anywhere is always going to be fun. This one's not racing related, but maybe you can make it a little bit. But how this is from Eric, should I say? How different is living in America growing up to now living mostly in Europe and traveling the world for racing?
It changes a lot, I have to say. Like people, like it's really funny because people sometimes don't look at the US as the way they look at it. Like there's a lot of Europeans that look at the US and they go, "Oh, but like, is it really that nice? Like, come on, like it can't be that great." And then they go and they're like, "Wow, this is really nice." Like, and then there's other people, like for example, Americans that go, "But Europe, like, well, why would we go to Europe if we're really comfortable in America?" And then they go to Europe and they're like, "Oh my God, I want to travel all of Europe. This isn't," and like, I think it's two different cultures. And
Mhm.
the US is really comfortable in terms of living, in my opinion. And like, for example, Chick-fil-A is something that only Americans will understand. And it's really underrated. Or like Chipotle, for example, like growing up in karting, like the first couple of years in karting in the US, like Chipotle is really good, and they all for some reason it's always close to like the go-kart track, so that's what I would always have for lunch. Like, and that for me is like really good. And like in the morning when you're going to the track, just stopping at Chick-fil-A and buying like the chicken minis for breakfast, like I have to say that's amazing, and
I
that
love that you go
changes.
on to culture, and your first bit of culture is these fast food restaurants. The
Oh,
ultimate
but it's so
American
like,
stereotype.
and like this is kind of like the big culture shift where like I think that's in the US it's really normal, but then when you come to Europe, like for example, like in Italy. Like I raced in Italy pretty much all of my karting career, and I would always go to the same restaurant in Lonato when we would
Mm.
go racing at South Florida karting. I'd always go to the same restaurant. And I went for like 8 straight years. I think last year was the first year I didn't go since like 2013 or 14. So it's quite a long time, and oh, it was really nice. Like I just love it, and it just the food, it just really changes everything a bit more. And like for me, Italy was always really nice because it kind of felt like home in a sense. Like just because you spend so much time there, it gets to a point where you're like, oh yeah, so I
Mm.
remember this restaurant, and then the people at the restaurant start to know you, and then there's a specific table that you sit at, and then they always have that reserved for you. So it makes it a lot of fun, and like that kind of shifts a lot more going and then coming back. Like I remember in 2018, I was doing a lot of races in the US and also in Europe. And it was really cool to see not only the culture change, but also how the racing is. Because here in Europe, I was
Mm.
racing the European Championship and the World Championship, whereas in the US, I was racing X30, which is a different kind of engine, and I was racing the National Championship. So the way it shifts, it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool, and especially because no matter what, racing is racing, and the way you drive is a bit different, and the speed is a bit different, but the tracks are also really different. So honestly, like I really enjoyed it. Obviously, traveling a lot, I don't really consider like one place better than the other because I love both. And when you travel so much, honestly, like you just miss certain things of certain places.
Mm.
Like for example, like in Bahrain, I'm gonna be honest. Like I already like we're having dinner tonight at the same place we had dinner last year. In Melbourne, we're gonna have lunch the same place we had lunch last year, and just specific tracks that you just go to, and you're like, yeah, I'm going here.
There's a lot of landmass in Europe and a lot of landmass in America, and essentially two continents. So you're always going to have a
Exactly.
lot of different things. So I think it's a bit of a crazy mentality for people who think this one's better than the other. It's there are better things, there are worse things, and traveling broadens the mind. And I, as somebody who's travelled, been fortunate enough to travel a lot, I fully recommend going as many places as possible. It's a great way to live, and very jealous of you, Sebastian, with that. Uh, this one slightly ties into what was going on last year with you, and this is from Instagram from Vias. What was it like being part of the Red Bull Junior team and surrounded by so many other junior drivers? And a little bit from me as an extra is how often did you get all together in the same place, or was it not really that sort of interaction?
To be honest, like because I was the only F3 driver, I was usually by myself. Like I
Hmm.
know the F2 drivers would do a lot of prep together on the sim because they're racing against each other, so it makes sense to put them all in the sim together and kind of compete against each other. Who can do the best long run? Who can do the best quality run? Who can put the best lap together? Who's the quickest overall but didn't put the lap together? Whereas for me, it was just myself. So we didn't
Hmm.
really spend like I didn't really spend much time with a lot of them. Um, I think the most time I spent with someone's probably Limblad, that we spent 2 days together. And I also spent 2 days with Wasa. And more than that, we did the filming content that came out on the Instagram page. We did that one morning, and then besides that, that was it.
So it's just like being a somewhat regular driver with access to the Red Bull facilities, really.
Yeah, like that was like all the junior drivers being together. But then in terms of working, like the work was really nice. The same for me, it was really cool because being the only driver, then you notice certain things. Like for example, like at certain tracks, like for example, Imola is a track that I did a lot of laps at in previous years because I raced Italian F4 and Freca. That's a track where you test and that's a track where you race consistently. And like immediately, like on the outlap, I noticed like this curve is missing, this curve is missing, this curve is missing,
Oh,
that board's missing, and I went, this is Red Bull Racing. They're world champions. Like interesting. Like, but then
hmm.
there's other tracks where you go to and you're like, this is identical. Like this track, like I feel every single bump I break and it just feels the same. So it was
That's
really cool,
fascinating.
like just to see that. And then I think the biggest thing for me was the learning side, the technical side. I was really surprised by how much they push their drivers technically and how much they really want you to learn. And I was really surprised by that. And the really good thing is that they won't judge you for not knowing. Like
Hmm.
if you don't know, say you don't know, and then you learn. instead of pretending to know and then you don't actually understand it. Like that was really cool, and I think that helped me a lot to mature throughout the whole season actually, and just realizing that if you don't know, you don't know. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake, and at the end of the day, we're all humans, and like no one knows everything, and everyone still makes mistakes. So that for
I
me was
like
really
that
cool.
I like that you, affiliation or not with any of the academies, that knowledge goes in the head, and that's yours for life now.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're settled and prepared for your future from it. This one, I guess we maybe spoke about it a little bit before, but Caesar from Instagram wants to know, what do you do? What do you like to do in your free time between race weekends, apart from being on aeroplanes?
Well, I have to say golf. After
Hmm.
like funny enough, after we did the podcast last year, I spent most of the Fermec Championship playing golf between races. Like I think the schedule was like Monday golf in the morning, top golf in the afternoon, then Tuesday golf, and then go to the range in the afternoon, and then Wednesday golf in the morning, and then track walk in the afternoon.
No escape rooms?
Not as well, but that was that was more between like after Fermec finished to Bahrain. That was like when we didn't have the work at the track that now Fermec had
Hmm.
finished. We'd do golf and then we'd go to escape rooms.
That's
And
not a
let
bad
me
way to spend your non-race weekends.
no, and like the best thing is that it was right next to the hotel. 5 minute walk and you're ready.
That's yeah. I've never really played enough golf to get into it, but I know it's a lovely way to spend a walk. I think Winston Churchill said it's the best way to ruin a good walk, but
Yeah,
it's nice to get out in the sun, be in the nature and whatnot.
and to be honest, like I really like puzzles, like solving puzzles. So it's like a 3D puzzle kind of thing that you're kind of in the puzzle and you're the puzzle. That was really cool. And the last thing I have to mention, or else maybe the team will get mad at me, is paddle. We play a lot of paddle, like in
What's
my
happened? This like the
family.
last 3 years, all the drivers seem to have got mad into paddle.
It's so much fun. And like the thing is that because the team is Spanish, they play. Because Mari is Spanish, he plays really well. And
Hmm.
like me, Ollie and I were more or less at the same level, and like we can go head to head quite easy. But then like Mari, for example, like it's next level, and like we don't only play like as a team, but like also at my home, like my mom plays, my sister plays, my dad plays, and we play a lot. Usually I play with my dad, and we can spend hours. Like I'll play paddle around like 4 or 5 hours a week in total.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
insane. If
Besides
you like
gym,
sport,
besides
you like
karting,
sport.
besides sim, I'll spend like 4 or 5 hours playing. Yeah, around that a week.
That's that's a lot of effort. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot more fitness that I think I ever do in a month. So well done, man. Well done. Right, we've got all these Discord questions where they get a little bit more. I don't know. Odd sometimes, but there's some sensible ones. This one's from the Bend. It's more the names which aren't so sensible, but this one's from the Bend Motorsport Park. Is there a bit of a rivalry between your father whenever you two race together,
Yes,
competitively and fun, of course?
yes, yeah, always, always, and everything we do, on track, off track, competitive, not competitive, yes, always 100%. Like,
And then this one, which kind of ties into it, how much does your father inspire you? That's from Les Vautours ont la parole. I apologize to all of our French listeners for that pronunciation.
I thought it was pretty fun. Anyway, there's a like my dad, first of all, like my dad was the one that got me into racing, so and he's done a lot, and then it kind of got to a point where I stopped looking at him like my dad, and then I realized, like, oh, like he's actually a pretty good driver too. Like, wow, that's pretty cool. But yeah, we're really competitive in my family. Not only myself and my dad, but also my sisters, my mom. We really push each other. And like, for example, we were playing paddle, all of us together, like my older sister, my mom, my dad, and myself, and like we were going crazy. Like it was it was so much fun, and like we pushed each other a lot. And then at the track, like for example, my dad and I, like we try to help each other because obviously we want to be as fast as possible, but
Mhm.
we're still gonna push each other very, very, very hard because at the end of the day, like in endurance racing, you want all of us to be quick, but you still want to be that little bit faster. And I think last year there was a couple points where Like my dad was really quick in some tracks, and then I was really quick in other tracks, and we were just kind of like, we drive so different. Yet I learned
Hmm.
from you, like that, like it was a different aspect, like a different way to look at it. But honestly, we're really competitive. Just our nature from day one has been really competitive. So we push each other a lot, and it's always in a friendly manner. Sometimes it gets out of hand, but
I,
then we bring it back to friendly.
I don't think you can be a racer without being competitive. I don't have it in me in the same way. I like to. I don't have that drive to always win and beat somebody in the same way. So I think if you've, especially if you got it from your dad and seeing how quick they are, it's that makes a lot of sense. This was from Clara. Any rituals or practices before the races? Like, I don't know if you're getting from the same side, you put one glove before the other, anything like that. Listening to a song.
Yeah, usually, honestly, the main thing I do is like I usually put, like, for example, my right boot on before my left boot when I'm changing, and then I put my right glove on before my left glove, and then I jump in from the right side of the car. It really depends, but oddly enough, like the LMP2 you get in from the left side, so
So it ruins everything.
okay. But I mean, there's like certain things that I don't really see it as a superstition. It's more comfortable, and if you feel more comfortable, it's a bit easier.
Well, this maybe ties into it, getting into the left hand side, because Enendo Falonso wants to know what's the biggest thing you learned from racing ELMS, should I say?
I have to say, probably just driving a different car, because in the US the car was pretty different. They had a Michelin tires, it had more power, it had more downforce and less weight because it didn't have the BOP from the hypercar. Because in the
Mm.
US it was to the DPIs, whereas in Europe it was BOP to the WEC version kind of. So it had less power, it had more weight, and it had Goodyear tires, which wasn't as good. It was like around 4 or 5 seconds slower. So immediately it doesn't drive as nice. And oddly enough, it kind of got to the same speed as the F3, whereas before it was probably quicker than the F2 even. So first of all, like driving that was very difficult, and then adapting to it in different scenarios was really difficult. Like for example, Portimao was an interesting one where the truck was drying and then it was wet and then it was drying and then it was wet, but we were all on slicks. And it was really cool because again, the F3 season, like I'm pretty sure like most of the times, like it was 50-50 every time it rained. Like either I was on wets or I was on slicks. Like I was never like fully on one. And it kind of like I remember Silverstone, the feature race, when it started pouring down, that Tommy Smith boxed for wet, and he passed me like if I was standing still, and then it was all of us fighting like this, and I remember he passed us, like he came from P30 and just passed like half the field, and those like little things like that make a big difference with experience, and just every time you do it, you get a bit more confidence doing it, and I think that that's kind of what I learned with the LMS, that you get put in very difficult situations, and you just have to learn because you're going to be in the car for an hour and 30, an hour and 40 minutes, so you can't just be slow.
Plenty, well, it's plenty of time to make up for mistakes as well,
Exactly.
which is always quite nice. Um, Another one just about different racing series from Pro and Con. That's the name, not asking for a pro and con. What was operationally the biggest difference between racing for Mumbai Falcons in Formula Regional Asia and any of the older European teams you've raced with?
Mumbai Falcons was pretty much operated by Prema. So it was
Hmm.
my Prema engineer, it was my Prema mechanic. So operationally, it was really similar, to be honest. Like it was pretty much the same team. Like we would pretty much share info with the Prema team because we were all under the same tent. Um, just the car looked a bit different. Uh, I think the team manager was different. Yeah, the team manager was different because it was the Falcons team manager, but it was pretty much the same. Like I think
Operations.
the biggest
That's a
change,
fine answer, by the way. Did you ever say
the,
have to make one
the
up?
biggest change was probably when I went from Prema to high tech because it was two completely different philosophies. Where one was an English-based team and then the other one was an Italian-based team. Like that's like the complete polar opposite.
Lots of cups of tea or lots of espressos, right?
It was very different.
This one, Gabrielle. Gabriel. I'm not sure which way around it is. Again, two questions. Do you want number one or number two?
Two.
If you were able to freely choose a racing number, which one would you go for and why?
58 because that's the number that my grandpa originally started racing with, then my dad, then my uncle, and myself.
That is exactly the right answer to get out. Boom, straight in.
And
Knows
if
the
you notice,
answer.
it's still on my Instagram. Like when I got Instagram when I
I
was in
do
karting,
notice that actually.
it says Sebastián Montoya 58. And my mom asked me I should change it. And I went, it's kind of going to stay there for a while.
Nice. So when you are in F1, that 58, no one else take it, right?
Exactly. Like, please, please.
Find out how Kimi Antonelli drives a Mercedes next year with 58 and you're raging angry. Carlos wants to know, how do you see the future of auto racing in Colombia, or at least the future of auto racing for Colombians?
I see it in a good pattern. I see it in a good form. Um, my dad's been doing a lot, I have to say, for the sport and kind of getting everyone on a good track, like explaining a bit more how it should work. Like, because the thing is, you only know what you've experienced. And if you've never
Mhm.
been overseas, for example, or into another country, you only know what you've seen. So with my dad's experience, just kind of bringing that not only to the sport in Colombia, but to the people around it, that explains a lot. Like, for example, like the mechanics at the end, like my dad had a karting team when I was karting in the US, and all the mechanics were pretty much Colombian. And there was some like that when they got there, I remember that they didn't really know much, and my dad would get really mad at them. And then there was a couple times at the end where my dad was like, "Wow, you've learned a lot. Like,
Mm.
I'm proud. Like, this is interesting." And like honestly, like that for me was really cool. Like I remember my like pretty much one of the last few years that my dad was running the team, we won Rock Vegas, and like our engine wasn't anything incredible. Like it was pretty good, and we had the guys from Tony Kart that were helping us out with Tony Kart Factory at the time, and one of Colombian's mechanics, he went, "Sebas, you should tell him that we should try this because of this and this and this." I told him, he's like, "Oh, I was thinking the same thing," and then he looked at the Colombian mechanic and went, "Muy bien, amigo." And I went, "Okay, this is good. This is good. This is very good." But yeah, honestly, it really helps having someone that knows a lot. And I think that every day the sport is growing more and more. And as more Colombian drivers start to race overseas and bring success to the Colombian name in motorsports, that really helps.
Yeah, you see it in a lot of countries where they don't necessarily. It's not that you don't have the heritage, but it's haven't had the opportunity, and you have that one shining beacon, and it really changes everything. So that's really good
Yeah.
to see. Final few questions. This one's Ash Bryan. You had a deluge of bad luck last year, didn't you just? But also showed your blistering pace, didn't you just? How do you keep your head up and focus on the good even in the worst situations? And I suspect your answer this year will be different from what you'd have answered last year.
Yes, I have to say the answers are a bit different. Um, Last year, I think like the goal is always to win, and sometimes you have good luck, sometimes you have bad luck. To be honest, like throughout the season last year, I went like, what else can go wrong? And then something else went wrong, and it was just kind of like things happen. Like there's really like you can do your best, and I have to be honest. Like I did mess up a lot last year. Like I did do a lot of mistakes, but at the same time, like I have to look at myself and say I did a really good job in the other races. Like for example, Australia. Funny enough, Australia and Spa for me were the two weekends where I was struggling the most, but they're my best scoring weekends. So you kind of go,
Hmm.
what happened there? And like for example, Silverstone was a track where I felt like I was gonna struggle a lot, and I was leading the sprint race quite comfortably, and then I made a little small mistake at the restart, and then before I know it, I'm in P19 from leading the race. And at the end of the race, I had pretty good pace, and then in the feature race, we didn't have exactly the pace, but we still finished to finish in the points. So I think last year my response would have been, I don't know, like just one race at a time and just try to push through it. This year, to be honest, like I've been working a lot just to try to relax a lot more. Just let it flow. Like stop trying to worry about the things you can't really control. Because, like for example, like and like I don't want to put anyone in bad name here, but like for example, what happened in Silverstone in the first corner, like for me was kind of like, what else do I do? And like
Uh,
with all due respect, like the driver did come up to me and he did apologize after, and we just had different philosophies going into turn one. I tried mine, he tried his, and we found each other in the corner. That was it ideal? No, because I was leading the race, but at the same time, there could have been something I could have done differently. And I think even when you're doing something good, you could always improve on it. And I think that's kind of the mentality I have for this year, which I'm gonna do what I know I can do. I'm gonna enjoy it, and I'm gonna drive as fast as I can. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If I have the speed to win, I'm gonna go for the win. If I have the speed to finish P3, I'm gonna try to finish P3 because there's a couple times, like for example, like I mentioned that where I mentioned the time where I was unlucky, but like for example, Monaco, in my opinion, like I was in the wrong. Like I was too eager. I was in a position where I was really quick, and I was a bit frustrated because the car in front wasn't really quick, and the leaders were dropping me. And I have to go now. Like there's no more time. Like I have to go, or else I don't have another opportunity. And you, I just let myself kind of get blinded by the fact that there's still like around 10 laps left in the race, maybe even
mhm.
more. So if you break the front wing like I did and come back to the pits, that still like if I would have could have waited like 3, 4, 5 more laps, maybe the result could have been different. Maybe we still end up crashing, who knows? But instead of putting yourself in that tough position, like try to put yourself in the best position you can always and control what you can. Where in that point, I think I didn't manage. Well, I didn't manage what I did to the 100%, and I think that's kind of my approach for this year. Just maximize what I can do and just one race at a time.
Yeah, we see how both the champions F2 and F3 they weren't dominant with winning all the time last year. They pick up the points and it comes to them. So not a
Exactly.
bad philosophy to follow. Not a bad philosophy to follow. Final question from Tudoro16. And I don't know much about this. I want a little bit of backstory if you don't mind. But I already heard about your father's passion about remote controlled planes. Are you a fan as well?
So when we lived in Miami, my dad would fly a lot of remote control planes. And we actually have a sponsor called Horizon Hobby, and they're still really good friends of the family, the whole company. They're honestly amazing. We have some actually in Europe that we're trying to figure out where to fly because it's not as big as it is in certain parts of the US, and it's not as open as certain parts of the US. My dad was really big into it, and he also really liked helicopters. When I was
Hmm.
little, I was more into remote control cars and boats. Um, I was the destroyer. Like, I was the master at destroying it. Like you could give it to me, and in 20 minutes, I would give it to you in pieces. Like I remember, they gave us like a little. They gave me like a little dune buggy for my birthday. 15 minutes later, it was missing a wheel. So I was like, if it was a little testy, like if you need to see like how like it can really sustain a hit, give it to me. Give it to me, and I'll make sure I'll test how durable it really is. But I've learned that. But little me was going crazy with it, and here in Europe we haven't really done it. I have been wanting to try a bit more, but since we're never traveling and we don't really have any things to do, like we have so much free time as a driver that yeah, like I do it every weekend. Like I'm trying to find
Hmm.
like that's a joke, pal. That's sarcasm. Like I'm flying like every week, and if I'm not flying, I'm at the gym, and if I'm not at the gym, I'm playing golf or playing
I
paddle.
I had in my head flying the controller when you said enough. You're actually in a plane. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
actually
Okay.
in the
Okay.
plane, and those are not remote controlled. Those are not remote controlled. Um, but yeah, like in the end, like that's something that we have to do. But I think if we get a little like open weekend, I think that's something that we'd probably try to do.
Take them to the paddock, and who knows? You just put them down the pit straight or something. That'll be a load of fun. No, that's a. I've never done it, but I know people who have, and they go
Oh,
really
it's
big
really
into it.
cool.
So,
It's really, really,
I'd
really
like
cool.
to. And I know drones are all in fashion, but I feel there's just more skill maybe involved in having to
Oh, I have a
pilot them.
story with a drone that's like bad.
Please.
Like I
The
remember,
destroyer? Are you the destroyer again?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They gave myself and my two little sisters drones, really small, like pocket size, pretty much. And I remember the control, you could press it and you can either go forward for a front flip, back for a back flip, and then to the sides if you wanted to do a side flip. And I could do a flip easy, just click on it, pull it back, the thing would flop. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try to do a double. So I went full up, clicked on it, went back, clicked on it, went front, and it landed opposite way, just against the floor. That's it.
And the destroyer strikes again.
Again, exactly.
Well, before you destroy the podcast, Sebastian the Destroyer, I'm gonna have to end it there. So that's all the time we have with Mr. Montoya. Thank you to everybody for watching and listening. Thank you, Sebastian, for coming back on and being. You were potentially the best guest for giving an answer. You've got so many stories, and you were. I don't have to feel like I have to draw anything out. You have the way to talk. So. Thank you for joining again. I'd like to have you on in the future. Good luck for the rest of this season. For everybody watching and listening, if you are watching on YouTube, dropping a like on the video, leaving a comment, and subscribing to the channel, it all really helps us out. And if you're listening, leaving a review on the podcast platform you're listening on is greatly appreciated. And finally, check out feederseries.net for more Feeder Series insight, and follow Feeder_series and FS Americas on X and Feeder Series Net on Instagram. You can find the links to all of those, plus where to find everyone on the podcast, myself and Sebas, in the YouTube description or podcast show notes. Until next time, we have been the Feeder Series Podcast. Goodbye.